in case you guys need to come back and look. So I'm waiting for live stream to come back up. And I got muted it. Okay, cool. Sorry, muted. Alright. So I gotta show you where we're going. Okay, so for the final part, before we end class, this is what I want to say. I want to say that the whole purpose of today's class was to kind of throw you into the deep end of what UX design is, walk you through the process of the thought process that you're going to go through as a UX designer, the things you have to consider in terms of who your target audience is, empathetic design, researching the target audience, researching their behaviors, who they are, their age, their sex, their demographic, what their interests are, their buying behavior, all of that stuff from the perspective of a brand new application or project, and then taking all of that information, then translating it over into ideation phase, which is where you start to sketch out different things, definitely starting off with the wireframing first. The wireframing is just a concept of what's going to be present. Wireframes do not deal with aesthetics. It doesn't deal with how visually appealing it is. The wireframe is not concerned with what imagery you're going to use. The wireframe is not even, doesn't even deal with what the verbiage is going to be. The wireframe is simply a very rough, very high level view of the blueprint of the application and what's going to be present, and generally where it's going to be positioned on the page. And that's as deep as you go with wireframing. Just to recap, we talked about, I'm pulling this back up and share my screen with you guys. Oh, wrong screen. I have just in case you guys wonder why I'm always confused, I have like a million screens open. So I just have to navigate back to the one that I'm trying to show you. Okay, I'm back here. What screen are you guys seeing? What do you see?
UX design topics covered.
Okay, cool. All right, so just to kind of recap where we're going, keeping our eye on this map, right? We talked about the process, and in terms of UX design, you know, that the first thing we do is we gather data. If the app already exists, then we're gathering data in terms of who's already using the app and what's their experience, what's their pain points, how we can make it better. We're gathering all that data for apps that already exist. If the app does not exist, we are gathering data in terms of who we're targeting, what the goal and the mission of the application is, and what we want them to do once they get there. Everything that you do, you have to keep that in mind. Every design choice you make has to be supported by the data. Any design choice that's not supported by the data should not be presented. Moving on from there, developing the personas, like we said, just who is the person? How old are they? What do they do? All of that stuff. Once we have these two areas solid, we are here. We are in the yellow phase of the UX process, which is the ideation and techniques. The ideation techniques, I'm introducing you guys to wireframing through Sketch and through using like a tool such as Figma. Right today, we honestly just use Google Docs because we haven't installed Figma yet, but that's a technique. The techniques can be, sometimes people just draw something on a napkin. The ideation technique in a corporate environment, there's a lot of whiteboarding. The way that we're working together as a team, we all come together is literally everybody working together on one thing to collectively come up with how the design should look, taking bits and pieces from everyone's design ideation. So that's why that process, you know, getting comfortable as working as a team, getting comfortable with working with a team is important as we go through these 8 weeks together. From there, we're going to move on to storage. So once we actually solidify our ideation, which may, you know, take us a little bit more time, once we solidify that and we come together with what design we're going to go with, then we start to fall into storyboarding. And after storyboarding, then we're going to start pulling in outside people to validate our concepts and what we think is going to work, right? And we go through that process. So today we have gone through the first phase, we've gone through the second phase, and we are actually in the third phase. Now, having said that, you got to go back in and you have to dig deeper with what we covered today. So the way we covered it very surface, but deep enough so that you know what's involved and what is entailed, what's required of you. So having said that, for this week's homework assignment, what you're going to do is you're going to dig deeper into what we did together. What we did together was very surface, but you know how to do it. So what I mean by that is this week's homework assignment is this document that all of you guys have access to. Is, you know, you guys have access to it. This document here, you all are going to come back here and really build these sections out. So the target, spell out the age, spell out the sex, spell out their interests, spell out their buying behavior. Really take the time to Google search this. The internet, their hangout behavior, come back with at least 5 places they hang out online. 5 places. Geographics, we kind of already did that, just plug that in. The purpose, keep this in mind. We already did this together, right? But when you guys are coming up with these wireframes, as you're building out your wireframe, keep this in mind. Proof of viability need, we did that already. That was kind of when we searched the different communities that existed, and we know there's a following for it. The references, let me paste the references. I'm going to paste the references that we covered in class so that you guys have them. I'll do that later. But before don't let me close out Zoom, but I'll paste in your references in here. But the references that you guys found, we're going to paste them all here so that everybody has access to the same references for the data. Now, having said that, I want to show you where we're going next week. This is where we're going. So wireframes can only look like this. They can't look any more sophisticated than this. They're either hand-drawn or we're using like Figma or Adobe XD or something like that, and it looks like this. All of these symbols mean something, right? So there's a certain symbol you use to represent a persona. There's a certain symbol you use to represent images. There's a certain symbol you use to represent text. There's a certain symbol you use to represent going to the next page and coming back. These symbols are universal. So you don't have the creative liberty to just make up any symbols that you want, right? So when you create a wireframe, you have to stick to the symbols that are available to you because they're a language. I didn't get into that today because it's a lot, but we got into enough. So next week, we'll be unpacking the symbols that are available to you and what each one of those symbols mean. Which is why I was saying with Angela's design, it's too far ahead because you haven't done this part yet, and you have to learn the language of all the symbols. Another thing is when you're working in a corporate environment, the flow has to be approved first. And you don't even touch verbiage. Like in terms of that paragraph, everything is lorem ipsum. So like if I really zoom in here, well, they kind of said like the feature outside of the titles, the content is lorem ipsum. So when you see these squiggly lines, you really are only putting in squiggly lines, or you're putting in lorem ipsum. You make no inference as to what the text should say in a wireframe. You make no reference to what the text should say. It's all lorem ipsum. It's gibberish. Having said that, your homework assignment, everything you do, because we only have 8 weeks, like every week matters. It matters. So you guys, in addition to finishing this in addition to finishing this analysis, the research and analysis, what am I trying to say? The research and analysis document. In addition to detailing that out, another thing that's due next week. Let's go over this really fast. I want to stop sharing. I'm trying to find this for you guys. Give me 1 second. I gotta pull it back up again. Oh wait, here it is. Okay, so as you go through this process, I want to share this with you, and it's going to be in your Google Docs so you can refer it throughout the whole week. Actually, let me just, well, we'll do it before class ends. But let me share the screen again. Can you guys see my screen? Can you see the Word document? Are you all seeing it? Oh, okay. Okay, so as a UX designer, we kind of talk through this together, but in real life, these are questions that you have to make sure are answered, whether you're doing freelance, whether you're on a job. If you don't have the answers to these questions, you'll identify who the BA is and get the answers to these questions. Most of the time, though, in the corporate environment, they should be presenting them to you, but not necessarily everybody can have an oversight. So the questions are going to be this. When you're assigned to a project, you need to ask these questions. What's the organization's business model? We talked about this for Apple. Apple's business model is that they cater towards creators. What's the purpose of the product you are building or evaluating, right? We talked about that. The purpose was for people to collaborate and to be able to network with each other and connect with the community of content creators. What's the business problem that you want to solve? So this is you talking to the person at Apple or talking to a person you're freelancing for. What's the business problem? The business problem is like we want more community engagement and we want more word of mouth, right? Is this the right problem to solve? That's a give or take. But when you're freelancing, what's that saying is that really what we should be focusing on right now? You get hired at a corporate environment, you don't ask people, is that really what we should be focusing on right now? Unless like you read the room. Sometimes, because those are executive level decisions. When I was telling you, like when we went over that life cycle, and the first thing was them determining whether or not it was feasible to even pursue the project. All of that stuff is kind of what they're asking. But in some cases, depending on the situation, it may be okay for you to ask that question. Is there any previous documentation or data that can help us shed light on the problem? Meaning that in this scenario, no, because this is a brand new community that doesn't exist. But at the same time, though, maybe some data may be a lot of complaints that there's no way for creators to communicate, or they want to have something that feels more like a community. Ask the question. The goal likely to change in the future? So the goal is to increase community engagement, to increase the number of people who just rally around Apple products, to increase the number of people who are referring friends to Apple products. Is there any chance that this may change in the future? Like, is Apple going to branch off and start supporting some other product? Just ask the question, right? What happens if the problem isn't solved? So what happens if we don't create community around the Apple products? Does Apple become irrelevant over time if we don't keep the community engaged? What does that look like? What does success look like? Right? Who? So these questions are all about understanding the users. Who is the website or product for? We already went over that. If there are existing users, what demographic do they belong to? Remember, we said age, gender, location, any cultural factors, any channels they're using. What's their long and short-term goals, right? What do we want them to do when they're using the product? We talked about that. What's really working well for them in the product? We wouldn't have that answer for this situation. What are their pain points? They don't have any because the app doesn't exist. But it could be that they don't have anywhere to connect, or they don't have a place to connect where it's a really cool online environment. Does this make sense? Ooh, does this make sense? And can you please mute? But does this make sense to you guys? outside of the person who was singing happy birthday.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. Is it possible to set up interviews with the actual users? You want to ask that question. Establishing the right process. If previous attempts have been made to solve the problem, what was the approach? You want to ask that question. Like, how have we handled this before? How have we tried to build community before? Have we ever tried to build a community site before and it flopped? Did we ever try to build one before and it succeeded? Right? Who are the brand's strongest competitors and how long have they solved this problem? So is there somebody else doing it better than Apple? Is there somebody already doing this whole community thing and they're doing it well? Take a look at them because that you get insight and inspiration from that. What problem solving process will be used? So what that means is like, is there any methodology or process you plan to follow? Is there any further research that needs to be done? Is there any domain specific knowledge that's needed? Meaning, like, is there anything that we need to know in terms of branding? Like, because Apple has very strict rules in terms of what font they use, what color they use. You have to stick within the brand guidelines. So that would be something you would need to know. What's the budget and the timeline? The budget in a corporate environment is not going to concern you. That's not a conversation you're going to be a part of. But if you're freelancing, the budget is going to be a part of the conversation because you're charging for your services. Are there any technology constraints? Somebody may say, well, we don't have access to our own website, or we had another web developer who was working on it and we can't get the access to the passwords, or I can't get my logo, that kind of stuff. Are there any risks or challenges to the project? Who are the stakeholders? You will hear the word stakeholders a million times once you get hired. And the stakeholders are the administrators and the executives who are over that division you're working on. So in our scenario, who's the stakeholder for this? Who remembers? What's his name?
Tom.
Yeah.
Tom would be our stakeholder because he's the person who's spearheading this whole Applehead community. How do the project goals translate into success metrics? So meaning, how are we going to measure whether or not what I designed is working? That's a very important question. And someone needs to have an answer for that. Because like I said, UX design, you guys make or break the company. You don't want people just subjectively blaming you for stuff. Like, oh, well, if you hadn't put that pink button there, you cost us $5 million in sales. It's like, okay, well, how do you know the decision for the pink button made that? Like, what metrics are you using to confirm that, the impact that the design changes are having? And yeah, that's it. So the homework assignment, the reason I went over all of these questions is because, like I said, everything matters, right? So when you're in a class like this, when the whole objective is to get you in the market fast, everything has to be a portfolio. Everything has to be usable. So I'm never going to give you an assignment that's not going to be used in your portfolio when you're interviewing. So having said that, this week, over the course of the 8 weeks, you guys are going to have to adopt 3 businesses. This week, you got to identify at least one business that you are adopting for this process. You are not charging these businesses for your services. You have to adopt 3 businesses. And by the time that we meet, you got to have at least one business. It can be a small business owner, it can be whoever, but this week you have to identify at least one business you're going to adopt. So maybe it's a salon owner, maybe it's a restaurant owner, maybe it's somebody, an accountant, maybe it's someone who does lawn care. I don't know, but you have to identify one business owner that you're going to adopt, and you're going to be their UX designer. And you need to sit down with them, schedule a meeting with them between now and Saturday, and you're going to sit down and ask them all these questions. If they have a website or a web app, then it's going to be your job to look at their website, look at their web app, and you're going to sit down with them, have them identify something they want to achieve on the site. One goal. So let's say, for example, if you know someone who's in the landscaping business, and they have a website, but no one ever uses the website people always call them and ask them questions and they're frustrated because they're like, why don't you just look at the website, right? So that one goal, maybe I want people to go to the website before they call me. That's your one goal. Once you identify like what the objective is for the business owner, you're going to go through and ask them all of these questions. All of these questions are due by Saturday for at least one business owner. Once you ask them all of these questions, all I want you to do is have a sketch pad. I was looking for a sketch pad. Can you guys see? Can you guys see this, the notebook I'm holding up? Yes,
Yes, but
no?
I can see the notebook. I can't see what's written on it though.
Nothing is written on it.
Okay. Now, I didn't write down any of these. Are we gonna get a copy of this?
This is in the Google Doc that you guys already have access to.
Oh, okay.
So, what was I saying? Oh, get a sketch pad, buy a sketch pad, or just get some. It can't have any lines on it, so get a sketch pad, or either like just some typing paper, whatever, and a pencil. It has to be pencil. So this is what you're gonna do. First, you're gonna finish filling out the questionnaire that we already started, or the research paper we already started, right? After you do that and you fill in those details, you're gonna go back and you're gonna work on the mock that we already started. That's mock number one, it's wireframe number one. But you're also going to adopt a real business this week. And you're going to either sit down and talk to them about a website or an application that they need or one that they have and the one thing they want to achieve. You're going to ask them all 25 of these questions, and all 25 of these questions need to be answered by Saturday. And you also need to come up with a sketch for them, right? So when you come back on Saturday, you're going to have the research doc that we started completed. You're going to have a real research doc that answers 25 questions. 25 questions. So the questions that we did with the Apple thing plus all the other ones we talked about for a real business. And based on the answers that they give you, you're going to come up with at least one wireframe that is a handwritten sketch with just pen and paper. So you don't have to worry about trying to make this look pretty. Sketch it out. Just sketch it out with pencil and paper. Then when we come back on Saturday, we will move forward from there. We're going to look at we're going to talk about each person's business. We're going to talk about the business you adopted. We're going to talk about what they're trying to achieve. And then we're going to look at the real way you mock up wireframes. So then next week, we're going to take the rules of how you really do a wireframe and apply them to the wireframe and the concepts that you already have in place. The reason this is crucial is because once you graduate at the end of the 8 weeks, you're going to have references. So when you start interviewing, people are going to, what's the first, on any job, they always say, list at least 3 references, right? The business that you adopt this week is going to be your first reference. So be mindful of that in terms of the business's professionalism. Like, even though they're not big, you got to think about, when I list this business as a reference and I apply for a job and they call them, is their presence and their phone etiquette professional enough to help me get the job? So think about that when you're choosing the business you're going to adopt as well. Again, like I said, you're not charging them for this because, for one, you don't have the skill set to charge them for this. And then secondly, though, this is just so that you can build your portfolio so that you have to have real working projects to get a job. You need real working projects. You need real stuff, right? So that's your homework assignment. That's what's due by next Saturday. Do you guys have any questions about that?
No. I'm just confirming. Yes, I do. Hold on. Okay. So we are doing basically what we already did today again, and that includes the part of the research and the targeted audience and all of that for another company or for a small business.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we're finishing our one we started here.
Exactly. And
We're gonna-
the difference is with this sketch is gonna be a pencil sketch, which is gonna take a lot of stress off of you. You're just gonna sketch it out on a sketch pad.
Okay. All
And
right.
then you can actually like just take the picture, you know what I mean? Take the picture of the sketch and then we can just share the picture with each other. Because you can like
Okay.
just take the picture, we can just look at the image of the picture of the sketch.
Okay. All right. That's good.
Any other questions? All right, so I'm gonna go. So that's it. Today was an awesome class. You guys did really, really well. You guys are fun. You make the time go by fast. So yeah, that's it. So everything that I just said is in the Google Doc. So the questions are in, well, they're gonna be in the Google Doc in like 2 seconds. The questions are in the Google Doc. What we already did is already in the Google Doc. You guys have already been working on that. And your references. Can everyone before they leave, copy your reference that you posted and post it on the Google Doc? Everyone do that really fast. So everyone post their own reference in the Google Doc. And I'm looking at the Google Doc and I'm waiting for your reference to show up there. So I think Janella and Angela had references. Did you have any, Tori? Did you post any?
No.
Okay. Janella and Angela, are you guys posting yours, pasting yours inside of the Google Doc?
I'm trying. Oops.
There go Janella's. Angie, yours coming? Where's Angie? Is she still there? Did Angela leave? Okay, I'm assuming she left. I'll post hers real fast. Hold on 1 second.
I put it in there. Maybe I put it on. I know I copied and pasted it on there.
I don't see it in the Google Doc, Angie. I only see Janella's.
You gotta scroll down.
No, I don't see it.
Right there.
Oh, no, okay. Yeah, posted in the under the references section. It's up here.
All right. I gotta go.
Okay, all right. Have a good day. See you guys Saturday.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.